Okay, my friends, this is Nagi Iowa 101. So, after rewatching a video from a particular YouTuber by the name of Rebecca Parham, I decided to do a very interesting story about my anthropology teacher. I was required to take an anthropology class for physical anthropology in order to get into this other class, which, trust me, I really didn't want to go that far into it. But here we go. Now, this teacher, upon entering our class, so many red flags came up of the fact that, one, I volunteered to take notes for a student who was having trouble anyway because she was also in the same special ed class I was in. Emphasis on the fact that both of us had failed the class, and we had to go talk to the dean. The dean of the school actually was very well aware of how irritating this woman was. In fact, he had already talked about 5 other students and ended up taking me on a special case value, and I'm very nicely glad that Mr. Kent did it. Yes, I will give his real name. His name was Mr. Kent. I will always appreciate him as a teacher. My anthro teacher was a complete crazy woman. Okay, the first day in, she explained a few things, and I have my own quirks and things, and she understood that one, but she didn't understand I lived up in the mountains of Colorado, and it snows. She assumes that since she lives in the foothills of Genesee, not even close to 285, that since she could make it to class, I could. It took Professor Ken about 5 to 10 minutes to explain to her that I live in Bailey, Colorado. Not Evergreen, not anywhere close, not even Conifer. And the woman's like, oh. Okay. So, finally, when I failed her class, and trust me, I was actually relatively irritated because I had studied my living daylights out of that class, I decided to go to Mr. Kent and show him my grade, and show him every other classwork I did, which got A's. And he went, okay. Went to his class. He explained everything thoroughly. I mean, he wasn't by the textbook, but he explained it so well that even if I hadn't read the textbook, I would have gotten the project done twice as fast. In fact, I did. In fact, I also had an atlas of all the different hominids that I could find via internet and everything else. After the class, I had found out later that Kent and a bunch of the other anthropology teachers decided to take a little bit of a view of the class reviews, as in reviewed everything that she had been teaching us. They were not happy. I don't think anyone was happy, really, with that teacher. And yeah, sorry, I was eating earlier. She failed. Ultimately failed everything. And to this day, if you take physical anthropology, I usually will tell you there are really good teachers out there that actually will explain everything, and then you have the psychos. And trust me, my ex and I will tell you stories of our psychotic teachers, one of which was our Asian Studies teacher, or Introduction to Eastern Philosophy, which is another really fun little story in itself, considering my ex asked me to help him with the notes. Let me show you something. Ahem. My handwriting. I write everything in cursive. My ex cannot read cursive. Trust me. He's tried. But when I type up my notes and actually gave them to him, he actually understood 90% of what I wrote. Considering the fact that my ex also refused to buy a textbook, Reason why? Why buy a textbook when you can ask your ex-girlfriend who has an A in the class to actually loan you the textbook and her notes? The teacher had absolutely no idea the two of us actually were sharing a textbook. On top of that, we were also studying for the same tests. We were mostly, and I will tell you this now, my ex says I was an overachiever in the worst possible sense. I took Chinese. And I still can't speak it very well. I can speak Japanese perfectly well. Well, not perfectly. More like comparable enough that I could understand half of what's being told to me. But when it came to psychotic teachers, they exist in so many levels and so many weirdo ways that even people have never actually seen the things that I have. The two teachers that I will say are psychotic. My anthropology teacher and my intro to Asian philosophy, which I actually had to have her in my second class, which was Chinese philosophy. Dear Lord, I had to deal with that woman on so many levels. On Confucianism, I wanted to go strangle. I really would have rather I gotten someone from China actually teaching me the goddamn class. And that was my whole story of the dealing with college professors. I also had a college professor who was my political science teacher, who, let's just say, midway through the year, he switched parties. After me and one of my friends actually gave him a good reason to go to the Democratic Party. I don't know whether he stayed in it. That's the thing. But Mr. M was actually pretty decent. And he still emails me from time to time. Last email was actually pretty entertaining, considering he was inviting me back to meet his daughter, who is now 14, who is into acting and anime, and he has absolutely he has no freaking clue what to do. He kept my email around because he was also my advisor in trying to get me to switch degree fields to political science. To this day, I think I don't really... He says I'm much more level-headed than most of the students in his class when it came to political science, but mostly because I didn't take shit from people. Excuse my language. We had several classmates that were a mix of very ultra-conservative, which really got Mr. M really concerned, considering he's not conservative. He's more progressive. And when dealing with that situation, even he said it was kind of nutty. Now, he's the example of the more level-headed teachers, and then you have the two psychos that I had to deal with. Now, everybody has their own story of their crazy-ass teacher who you kind of want to go, what the hell is wrong with you? And honestly, I think my sister and I in high school had the same teacher. And this was our theater teacher. And if Rebecca Parham ever watches this video, we actually have a really funny story about our theater teacher. And ours was a community theater teacher who was actually pretty cool. And when he did his version of Yellow Submarine, it actually got a lot of notoriety to it. So that was actually pretty cool. Anyway, that was my story of the psychotic teacher and the not-so-psychotic teacher, who was actually relatively normal compared to what we had to deal with. My ex, thankfully, has never been in my anthropology class with that woman. He would have just tore her a new one, because he did not like the way she treated any of the classes. Actually, actually said I was in tears when I came home one day, and he really did not appreciate what she had said to me. As for the other teachers, none of them actually did that, where they would make me cry or be rough with me about that. For one, when you're a special ed kid and you go through that, some teachers don't quite grasp the whole, oh, yeah, sorry. That, I had one teacher I actually had to remind her about 3 or 4 times that I understand what she was saying. I'm not an idiot, but don't talk to me like an idiot. And that was actually a professor in speech, and he that was 2 teachers that did a class together, which was actually very strange. So, yeah, I've had my share of the crazy, weird, and eccentric. I might talk about the eccentric teachers because I had one in high school who was extremely eccentric, and it was to the point that even dealing with him was actually pretty entertaining. And he was also quite a stoner. So, yeah. Anyway, I gotta get to bed. I really do appreciate talking to you guys. Talk to you later.